Practical gifts that can be done in under 1 day. That's my promise to you. I don't know about you, but does anybody else find these tissue boxes really ugly? So what I'm envisioning to fix this problem and make a gift that everyone can use is a wooden box that the tissue can go into. I think we can pull this off pretty quickly, so let's jump over to the wood pile and see what we're working with. I'm going with walnut and cherry, a classic combination on this. I'm marking everything out. It's then time to get our stock straight and square. If you don't have a jointer, that's no problem. I'll link a video that I did before on how you can get things straight and square without a jointer. But I gotta say, it is nice for getting things done a lot more quickly. If you wanna make one of these awesome tissue boxes for yourself, I've got you covered. Head over to my website in the description down below for full measured drawings of everything to do with this project. So I've set up the miter gauge for these 45-degree miters. I'm using a 1-2-3 block and my miter gauge. My miter gauge has dual flip stops. And so this is why if you don't have a miter gauge like this, just run it through with a chamfer bit on your router table and follow it up with a backer board so it doesn't blow out the end, and you'll be really well off. But basically what I've done is my first stop block is where the flat end is going to go against, and I make my first cut. Once I've done that, what I've found is the corner will go underneath the stop block and throw things off. So instead what I've done is I've set this up to be just a hair under the distance that we cut here when I add the 2-inch side of this stop block. I slide that against, run it through. That gives me both sides of the cut really perfectly, really repeatable. Repeatability is important for us to actually get that properly closed miter. The sides have to be the same length to the one that is running parallel to that side. I've got a small piece of 1/8-inch birch plywood that I'm going to go ahead and cut down to size based on my plans that I've got available at the link below. As well, I'm just double checking those off of the actual piece. After all, sometimes we cut things not quite perfectly, and if we do, we're gonna be better off using actual relative dimensioning. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this piece of plywood down. With all of that done, now it is time to just do a quick double check here and make sure that everything is going to fit. So we'll put this in here, close that up. A lot of people like to use masking tape for their glue ups. That's good, but one thing I noticed, I ended up with one piece I had to recut off camera, and I didn't quite plane it down to the right size. And so I think if I were to use masking tape, I'm gonna end up with everything biased to the outside corner, so my insides won't be correct. What I wanna do here is bias everything to the inside corner. I can always sand the outside corner flush. I'm gonna be using one of these strap clamps. What I want to do right now is just double check that everything is fitting, that everything is square. Get us good in the corners. Like that. And this one here. And then we'll tighten everything up. This here is also a great time once you get everything dry fit. Double check that your tissue box is going to fit. I went through the store and I found all the different sizes of tissue boxes that I could find in this rectangular format just to make sure that they will fit. This is going to be great, dropped right in. So we're ready to do some pre-sanding and some pre-finishing, and then we'll glue this thing up. All right, so we have everything pre-finished for the insides, and I've got my Type-Ons, I've got a rig, spray bottle. All right, what we are going to do, we've got our band clamp. You can use masking tape if you want to. I've got a square. Let's get this going together. Spray bottles. Get a little bit of water on here. Nice thing about this, the inside is completely wide open. I'll use this end of my glue brush, the paper towel around that. And then I can get into the corners here really well. Get all that squeeze out. All right, with that glue up done and the boxy and clamps, we're gonna leave that for an hour or two just to set up. Remember, we're trying to get this done in one day. Now we need to start milling up the lid, so let's get to it. I've gone ahead and already used my laser engraver to cut out a template with some indexing marks. If you buy the plans, you're going to get the DXF file you can use to laser cut this for yourself. The plans also include a full-scale drawing that you can just print out and apply to your template material and do it that way, or directly to the workpiece itself. So let's get some double stick tape out and we're going to put this together. We'll run over to the drill press. At this point here, we have a functional Kleenex box. It might not be pretty at this point, but I mean, that fits in, that drops in on top, and boom, we got something half decent. I think we can make it look a little bit nicer though. We're gonna add some decorative chamfers, soften some edges, sand it up, and then I think what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna add some keys in here as well. So let's get to that. I needed to make a new spline cutting jig, so I just attached some pieces of plywood that I had laying in my scrap bin together, put a high fence on it, and then set some other scraps of plywood at a 45 degree with the opening at the bottom. And that is the perfect jig to be able to cut splines in any kind of box or picture frame. If you don't have one of these, I really suggest that you make one for yourself. So in my saw, I usually use thin kerf blades, oftentimes alternating tooth bevel, which creates a little bit of a peak that we don't want for cutting in these splines. That's why I keep this guy around. This is my only full kerf blade, and it has a flat top grind. This is gonna create a 1/8 slot that is completely flat at the top for our spline. So I'm gonna load this thing in the table saw. We're gonna use our new jig and we're gonna get going to a height where it's not gonna cut all the way through the box. It's not gonna go through, but it's gonna give us a nice cut. Okay, so I've cut some 1/8 pieces of cherry off camera here, and this is what we're going to go ahead and put into these slots. We're just gonna glue them in, try to keep the grain going good direction. And then once the glue dries, slice them off to the races. Well, there you have it. This is a one-day project. It looks absolutely amazing. Obviously, if you can do it over a stretch of days to let the glue completely cure between steps, that's probably the best thing. But as you can see, you can get it done. You got a birthday party tomorrow you need to go to, you forgot to buy a present and all the stores are closed for some reason, just pump one of these babies out. You know, it's practical. Make one for your house, make one for your office. I've got plans over at my website. I'll link them in the description below. Till next time, make sawdust, not excuses.